The Tigers took down the Aggies this weekend, but how far up the power rankings did they move? What's up, War Report family? It's your boy Mike G, and I'm here with my guy Chris Phillips from SEC Unfiltered to talk about his latest SEC power rankings. The Tigers took down the Aggies this weekend. We're going to get into that because there was a lot of movement. It was actually a crazy week in the SEC. But Chris, you were in Austin this weekend. Tell us about your travels this week.
Well, Mike, first thing I want to say is appreciate you having me on, and congratulations to the Auburn Tigers. How about it? Got it done. I know we're going to discuss it. I am happy. I am happy for everybody that tunes into this show, Mike, all your great listeners and audience for feeling good waking up on a Sunday for a change. So congrats to War Eagle. But, yeah, we were in Austin for the Texas-Kentucky game. Had a blast. The game was never really in doubt, not maybe some of the dramatics we've seen throughout this year, which was totally fine. Had a blast. In-stadium atmosphere was awesome, but the city of Austin, Mike, was the star of the show this weekend. I was out 3 straight nights on 6th Street with a lot of great Longhorns, having a great time, and it was a blast. The hospitality was as good as any I've had all season, so can't say thank you enough to the great Texas folks. And now we're looking ahead to College Station, going to a game that feels like it's got sort of that game of the year feel to close out the SEC Unfiltered tour in style. So it's been a lot of fun.
Well, Chris, look, man, we appreciate your travels. I'm living vicariously through you, my friend, so far this season. I haven't been able to do a lot of traveling, but I will be in Tuscaloosa this weekend for the Iron Bowl. But look, there were a lot of games that happened this weekend that left the SEC an absolute mess. Let's take a look at last week's SEC Unfiltered Power Rankings. Week 13, Texas at 1, Ole Miss at 2. Frauds, Chris. The fraud bods. You heard of dad bods? These are fraud bods. South Carolina at 3, Georgia at 4, Tennessee at 5, Alabama at 6, Texas A&M at 7. We know what happened to them. Vanderbilt at 8. They suffered a loss to LSU. Florida at 9. Now, before we started recording, we talked about he who shall be named, Billy Napier, and the amazing job he's done with Florida so far this season. LSU at 10. Somewhat of a disappointing season for them, but they still have a chance to pull out 8 wins in this regular season. You've got Arkansas at 11. Missouri, also frauds. Yeah, they're rocking the fraud bod there at 12. Auburn at 13. They had to move up. They had to move up after beating A&M. But as we mentioned, just what do you do with these rankings so far this year?
Yeah, Mike. I mean, listen, every single week, and I've accepted, right? I post the rankings and don't look at many of the comments because you're not going to make a lot of friends trying to power rank the SEC this year because we were talking right before we jumped on. If you want to use head-to-head, that's great. But all of a sudden, we've got this – I saw a meme over the weekend, the circle of suck. And it's just like this team's beaten, this team's beaten, this team's beaten. And it's just like you go down this list. So, listen, man, trying to put these power rankings together is damn near a fool's errand. It's damn near impossible. I try my best weekly anyways. I do my very best. But there's only so much you can do, man. So, depending on quality of win or the loss or whatever, people want to see certain teams shoot up 7-8 spots every week. And
it's hard.
It can't happen. It can't happen because somebody's got to go somewhere, right? Like the way you mix them up. So,
the head-to-head was a mess this year, right? Because this team beat that team. Yeah, I mean, kind of going back here to rounding out week 13, Kentucky at 14, State and Oklahoma. You had Oklahoma as the worst team in the SEC last week.
I couldn't believe what happened.
My goodness.
Couldn't believe it.
Well, let's look at what happened because this is week 14. Texas still at 1. Now, I will tell you, one of the biggest beef I've had with these rankings is I understand why you moved Georgia. I just don't think they've ever not been the best team in the SEC so far week to week. South Carolina up to 3. They might be the best story in the SEC so far this year.
They were 3 last week. I mean, and they got the win over Wofford over the weekend. No big deal. But they got a big one against Clemson this weekend, Mike. And I think that's one where, listen, with all the chaos and the madness, if the Gamecocks win that one and finish 9-3, they've got a case. They've got a really, really compelling case for the college football playoff.
Tennessee had a cupcake this weekend. Ole Miss, the fraud bods dropped from 2 to 5 in these here power rankings. I want to talk about I'm going to speed through the rest of this because I want to talk about the significance of that drop. Florida at 6, Alabama at 7, Texas A&M at 8, LSU at 9. So again, LSU they won their game versus Vanderbilt, and you just kind of flip-flop those spots there. Not really. I mean, because Florida moved up a lot in these rankings. They were at 9 last week, and they moved all the way up to 6. But Vanderbilt at 10, Auburn at 11. There again, you got another head-to-head there. They played. Vanderbilt won.
I mean, listen, Mike. If these were power rankings based off of how good you are on your home field at night, Auburn's probably a lot higher.
They're probably higher.
The magic of Jordan-Hare is not to be messed with. A&M learned that the hard way.
They did. Arkansas at 12. The other frauds of the SEC, Missouri down.
Missouri
at 13.
fans are very upset with me. I think part of it is because I picked Mississippi State to upset them. They think I've got this like personal vendetta against, and I don't. Like I got nothing but love for MIZ, but to your point, who have they beaten?
Missouri should be upset with themselves. They should be upset with themselves because this was their year to make a playoff. Our friend Heather Dinich over at ESPN said that she felt like 5 teams could get into this playoff. I don't think that's happening, which is what I want to talk about here after we finish out these power rankings. Again, after Missouri, you jumped Oklahoma from last place to 14th, and then the bottom of the league with Kentucky and Mississippi State. No surprises there. I'm going to keep this up to open this, but I don't see 5 teams deserving of the college football playoff right now in these rankings. A lot of people feel like Alabama still has a fringe chance to get in, Chris. But certainly right now, Texas and Georgia lead the pack. I don't think the SEC runner-up should be left out, whether they have 3 losses or not. Agreed?
Oh, I agree 110%. I think it sets a terrible precedent if you leave out the SEC championship game loser, even if that's Georgia and they're sitting at 10-3. Again, with everything else that's happened in college football and the chaos. So, no, I agree with you, Mike. I think it just doesn't make sense to me to leave out the SEC championship game loser. And to your point, I mean, I'm struggling to find a 4th SEC team that's deserving of getting in. I mean, I think Georgia and Texas, I think Texas even could lose to Texas A&M. And I think at 10-2 because of the chaos that's happened around them. I think Texas might be safe either way. But right now, as we sit, you feel really good about Texas. You feel really good about Georgia. I feel really good about Tennessee. I think they are. I love Diego Pavi and what Clark Lee's done. But I think they're going to handle Vandy. And so that would put them at 10-2. I feel really good about those 3. Outside of that, Mike, I don't know. Because even I mentioned South Carolina. If you talk about who's deserving right now, who's played the best down the stretch.
Are they really? Yeah, I don't think they're a playoff. I think they have a great story, but I don't think they're a playoff team.
And I was going to say, to your point, Mike, I mean, how much does head-to-head matter? They lost head-to-head to Bama. They'd have the same record if they were to beat Auburn. They lost head-to-head to Ole Miss, who we feel like is done. But, I mean, they lost head-to-head to LSU. So, that's their biggest problem, who they've lost head-to-head to. So, outside of Georgia, Texas, and Tennessee, unless A&M beats Texas, and I think you could say maybe those 4, but
even that would be rough, man.
Even that's a stretch. So, the SEC might get 3 in. And if
I think that's fair.
If they do get a 4th, to your point, I do wonder who it is.
It's going to be Alabama. I think is still getting kind of the media benefit of the doubt. It shouldn't be. Ole Miss should be absolutely out of the conversation. I'm sorry, just fraud. I don't care if they beat Georgia. They're frauds. Lane is a fraud. You win one big game to lose one you absolutely should not have lost. And win the ones, beat the teams you're supposed to beat, and then beat a couple that you're not. But you can't trade off a good win for a bad loss. Like you can't do that. I just don't.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Ole Miss's playoff hopes are done, and I think they should be done. And I don't. To your point, it's about. I mean, this is the whole thing with the playoff, though, Mike, and what frustrates people. Is it about top 12? Is it about resume? Is it about who deserves to be in? Because
exactly,
Ole Miss doesn't deserve to be in. right? Do I think they're one of the best 12 teams on any given day? I do. I think that's the unfortunate part. Like, I think talent-wise, but they're not deserving of being in. That goes without saying.
And this new SEC, 16-team SEC, the SEC absolutely cannibalized itself in the middle of the pack. You had like Auburn is one of the worst teams in the conference, and they gave everybody a run for their money this year. Like, who ran Auburn off the field this year? Nobody. Yeah. I mean, even Georgia did it.
Mike, even Florida. I mean, I know they got run out of the building by Miami in week 1, and they Texas when they didn't have DJ Lagway. But I mean, outside of that, took Tennessee to overtime. That Georgia game was tied with 4 minutes left. I mean,
yeah.
You think about what Florida could have been this year,
If Auburn wins this weekend in the Iron Bowl, 14 out of 16 SEC teams will make bowl games this year. I mean, it's just underscoring what a phenomenal season the SEC had.
I think it speaks to, Mike, the portal and the way that the talent I don't think schools like Alabama, Georgia, maybe even Texas, although they look the part, but these top teams aren't able to just hoard all the talent. Guys are leaving portal, they want to play, and I just think it's more evenly dispersed in the talent. I said this, Mike, if you're a fan of SEC baseball, this is what's been happening in SEC baseball every year. It's just everybody beats up on everybody, but from the football dynamic, it's something we're not necessarily used to.
Yeah, agreed. Before we get to Auburn, I just want to mention this segment of the War Report is brought to you by our friends at Los Amigos Mexican Restaurant. If you're in the Auburn Opelika area, Chris, and you're looking for some good eats, I know when you came to town, you had a lot of good stuff to eat, but you didn't go to Los Amigos. And the next time you come, I'm taking you here. You can find them at 1220 Fox Run Ave, Suite 200 in Opelika, Alabama. Some of the best Mexican food you can get in this area. Also, they serve the community. Great place to watch a game. TVs everywhere. Law enforcement, local politicians. And best of all, Chris, when you go into Los Amigos, one thing I love to see in any restaurant is 100 on their health score hanging on the wall. So they are keeping it tight over there. We appreciate them for sponsoring this segment. Also, this segment of the War Report is brought to you by our friends at Manscaped. Visit manscaped.com and use code REPORT to get 20% off plus free shipping. Listen, we're sophisticated men in a sophisticated world. Too sophisticated, Chris, to be walking around with an unkempt bush down there. Manscaped has you covered with their beard hedger as well, too. The electric shaver that they have. Just you can get a professional shave both upstairs and downstairs. Join the 11 million men worldwide that trust Manscaped for their personal grooming and care. Again, manscaped.com. Use code REPORT to get 20% off plus free shipping. And last but certainly not least, I want to thank our friends over at Joy Mode. This is a different, I celebrated after the game. I'm not gonna lie. Chris, I celebrated after the game on Saturday. Joy Mode helped me out a tiny bit, and my girl was happy about it. But visit tryjoymode.com so you can experience the joy I experienced after an Auburn win. Code REPORT will get you 20% off plus free shipping at tryjoymode.com. We appreciate them for sponsoring the War Report. This is imagine a supplement like your favorite greens packet that you can put in 6 to 8 ounces of water about 45 minutes before it's time to perform, and bam, you go from 6 to midnight and it's over, right? Tryjoymode.com. Use code REPORT to get 20% off plus free shipping. Chris, Auburn took down the Aggies. We rushed the field for only, I think it was the fourth time since 2001. In my freshman year in college, we beat Steve Spurrier's #1 Florida Gators. Damon Duval kicked a 48-yarder into the wind, hooked it in. Auburn wins. We tear down goalposts. Doesn't happen again until 2013, kick 6. Then it happened again in 2017 when they beat Alabama. That year they beat Alabama and Georgia. And then it happened again in 2019 when 2 pick sixes against Mac Jones was enough to take down Nick Saban there at Jordan-Hare. It happened again last night. It felt like the Super Bowl. It was an incredible environment, and Auburn fans absolutely did not quit on this team. I would not have blamed them if they did. The results were poor. There's no other way else to say it. I think they were underperforming the talent. The coaching was not great. And it led to a lot of disappointing losses. Now, nobody expected a championship in year 2 of the Hugh Freeze era, but certainly they weren't expecting a potential 4-win floor. That's where they would have been at if they had lost these last 2 SEC games. And certainly not a lot of people picked them to win. On game day, I think Kirk Herbstreit was the only one that picked Auburn. Everybody else picked A&M. So it was an absolute upset on Saturday. Your thoughts on the game, my friend?
Well, Mike, I think there's a short-term and a long-term takeaway. From the long-term, it gives you hope. I just think it gives you hope that the Hugh Freeze tenure can be what many of us thought and expected it would be, right? Because you were starting to lose that hope. You were starting to lose faith that, things could really get turned around. Because it's one thing to recruit well, obviously, and to say the right things at the podium, but without proof of concept, it becomes really that you kind of just start to lose that belief. I mean, I thought short term, to your point, I think you hit the nail on the head, Mike. From this, you got to give the fan base a lot of credit for, we expected Jordan-Hare to play a role Saturday night. And it did, and then some, right? A classic, an absolute classic of a ball game, a little bit higher scoring than I thought it would be. But like I said, man, I meant it. I'm really happy for Auburn fans and Auburn Nation and fighting through this season. It's been really difficult. And now you give yourself hope again going into the final week that you can take down your arch rival. And with as crazy as this season has been, I mean, Mike, it's to insinuate that it's out of the question that it could happen. I mean, welcome to 2024 where, up is down and left is right and nothing makes any sense. So, I mean, it was a great win. Really impressed with the weapons for Auburn. Guys just making big plays after big plays. For as critical as we've been of Auburn this year, I mean, that was, you just felt like they have to have one game like that in them. Like it just, this team's got too much talent. To your point, they've got too much talent to be held down all year long. And it just seems like every single year, man, we get a magical night at Jordan-Hare, and it came against the Aggies. So, I mean, it was a great win for Hugh Freeze and company.
He needed this. And I'll tell you, after the game, he mentioned that there were a lot of big-time recruits at the game. Deuce Knight was there. A lot was made of him visiting Ole Miss a couple weekends ago. And he said, look, there are some big-time recruits here, and they need to come to Auburn, and they need to help us continue to build this roster. So it's no secret that Hugh Freeze believes that he's a couple recruiting classes away from competing for championships. But Chris, you're right now in terms of competing for 8 or 9 wins. Like, so you may not, there's no reason Auburn couldn't have done what South Carolina is doing this year so far. And
I would agree.
A win against Alabama in the Iron Bowl would mean so much. Like, the stakes were raised on Saturday by Auburn beating Texas A&M. You're playing for a bowl game, and you can solidify Alabama not being part of the first expanded playoff post Nick Saban. It might be a signal to recruits that the changing of the guard has officially begun. There are a lot of people who felt like the board would just pick up where Saban left off, and I warned them on Feinbaum preseason. You and we both been on Paul Feinbaum, and I told Alabama fans, this guy is not Nick Saban, and Auburn people feel like there's an opening here for Auburn to slide in and grab market share back. They started in recruiting. Alabama fans went nuts on the segment they called in. They said that Mike G guy has no clue what they're talking about. And now you're sitting here looking at a 4-loss season. Come on, man. This is an opportunity to absolutely change the winds of recruiting and I think all the momentum in the state.
And dare I say, Mike, that, I mean, there's always pressure to beat your rival, right? But dare I say it kind of feels like to me all the pressure is on Kalen DeBoer in Alabama.
It is. It 100% is.
I mean, this is a place that, Auburn hasn't won in 14 years since the comeback. For as great as the rivalry's been, it's just been domination for the most part in Tuscaloosa. But, I mean, you think about, the season already to a lot of Alabama fans feels like a disappointment. There's some people that are already questioning him being the guy, for the future, the long-term answer. And, I mean, if they lose on Saturday, they're not going to fire him, obviously. But, I mean, to your point, I think it could signal that changing of the guards. All the pressure's on Bama in this one to not, to not let Auburn come in and get their 6th win and get to bowl eligibility. And I think if you're Hugh Freeze and you're Auburn, I think you got to attack it that way and play that way. Like, listen, we're going to take the fight to them. We're going to make them show that they're ready for the moment. And if they're not, and there's no proof this Bama team will be, then who knows? We might screw around and win this thing in Tuscaloosa.
Chris, I did a radio show earlier today, and let me tell you this. This battle of top 5 recruits that's going to happen on Saturday with Ryan Williams and Cam Coleman has a chance to be absolutely epic. And if you don't think that these true freshmen are going to impact this game, I would like to remind everybody that Cam Coleman decommitted from Texas A&M and then torched them for 128 yards and 2 touchdowns in a game that without him, Auburn loses, and probably soundly. But he went out there and he made the plays that won the game for them. He had 15 catches all year coming into that game. He made 8 this weekend versus Texas A&M. Come on, man. Right. And so whose star is going to shine the brightest? I've been on record as saying I feel like Cam Coleman is just as good a talent as Ryan Williams. He's really good. He's just had more opportunities. And my criticism of Hugh Freeze was scheme it up, man. Get Cam the ball. Because other teams are not making excuses for how they're being defended as to why their star receiver isn't getting targets. Throw him the ball. Milroe just drops back and throws Ryan Williams the ball and lets him go up and go get it. He's not throwing darts out there. Come on, man. Get him the ball. And you got to keep that going on Saturday.
Yeah, you got to find a way to get your playmakers the football. To your point, that Cam Coleman Ryan Williams showdown is going to be a lot of fun. I saw the clip. Was it DeMarcus Riddick? I think it was the freshman linebacker that said that Yeah, which it's one of those things where I'm sure for you, Mike, maybe, and I don't know, maybe you're loving it, but I think a lot of fans are like, oh, don't give. I love the smack talk. I think I love rivalry week. I love everything about it. Bulletin. I think we almost at times make too much of bulletin board material. Because once the ball is kicked off, all that stuff goes out the window. It's X's and O's, it's execution, it's Jimmy's and Joe's. All that bulletin board stuff is more so for the week and for fans. So.
Yeah, if there's a guy who can go out and back up what he said, though, it's DeMarcus Riddick. Yeah, now, he won't be on Ryan Williams, but let me tell you, he's been an absolute wrecking ball defense for Auburn these last few weeks. He's a true freshman as well, too.
Yeah.
So true freshmen will be all over this field.
To your point, young talent is going to go a long way in determining that game.
Yeah,
a long way.
Yeah, going to be a lot of fun on Saturday. Before we get out of here, Chris, I got to do it to you. Give me a prediction. Who wins on Saturday and why?
I love rivalry week, Mike. I really do. I love rivalry week.
Say the right thing here.
No, I do. I'm just saying I love rivalry week. Like all these games are incredible, man. It's, expect the unexpected. I think there's going to be some upsets this weekend. It's how this season has gone,
Okay. And?
Yeah, when I look at this game, I think Alabama's putting so much on Jalen Milroe right now. And I do think the thing that's gotten kind of lost this year, especially, and I know the defense, I think the flow, styles make fights, and the flow of that game on Saturday against A&M was just higher scoring. It's how the game went. But let us not forget that Auburn has been very good defensively, and DJ Durkin's done a great job of scheming. I'll go Auburn to win the game. I don't trust Alabama. I don't trust Kalen DeBoer.
Yes.
This season's wacky, too. Like, I'm obviously taking a shot in the dark, but picking Oklahoma to beat Alabama would have been taking a shot in the dark, and they beat them by 3 touchdowns. So, good luck trying to make sense of it all.
Okay.
And I know streaks are meant to be broken. I know it's been 14 years, but I think Auburn playing with some serious momentum and nothing to lose. Hugh Freeze calls one of his better games of the year. I think Auburn wins. Give me 27-24. Auburn beats Alabama.
27-24 and an absolute barn burner, no pun intended. I love that score. I'm actually going 31-24 Tigers. This Auburn defense has showed up all year. I think that Alabama's offense is sliding at the wrong time. Personally,
a lot of it is how you're. To your point, a lot of it is how you're playing. Like how you're trending. And Bama's trending very much so the wrong way.
Yeah, look, this guy he's just not Nick Saban. He's not Nick Saban, and Alabama fans were fools to think that he would walk in and instantly. But this isn't a rebuild. He inherited the most talented roster any coach has ever inherited. They tried to point the transfers. I don't want to hear all of that, man. Jalen Milroe was a French Heisman candidate to start the season. And he has arguably played worse as the year has gone on. Under Kalen DeBoer, under the QB whisperer. So I don't want to hear it. Look, they're not a bad football team. They're not a bad football team.
What's got to happen, Mike, and I think it can. I think Hugh Freeze has got to run circles around Kane Womack, and I think he can. I've been very underwhelmed by Kane Womack.
Yeah, we need the best version of Peyton Thorne. If you're Auburn on Saturday, you need the version that showed up against A&M. You just need them on the road. Now, Jordan-Hare is different. The energy is different. If you're Peyton Thorne, this is your legacy as an Auburn Tiger. Mm-hmm. You have a chance to do the most hilarious thing ever and go into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama in their house for the first time in 14 years. You love to see it. You're going 27-24 Auburn. I'm going 31-24 Auburn. We both got Auburn. But look, Chris, I want to thank you for joining me. Before we get out of here, tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, Mike, it's always a pleasure, my friend. We're at SEC Unfiltered, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, also YouTube and podcasts, and our website, secunfiltered.com. So a lot of the places you find the War Report, you can check us out, and you can check us out this weekend on the road as well in College Station. I'll be down there for the Texas A&M Texas ball game, which should be an electric factory. My first time ever to Kyle Field. Going to be a great weekend.
Guys, that's it for another great edition of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report with my guy Chris Phillips from SEC Unfiltered. If you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. We are the War Report on every social media platform, TW Report on TikTok. We're signing off, and as always, War Eagle.